Hi everyone, we are in the second half of episode 4. I apologize for the noise in the background. If you hear it, it's a construction day in my neighborhood. It's annoying as hell and it's really loud and it really sucks, especially if you're working at home. Today is the last day of summer, so you can see in the days to come, you'll see the change of season in my outfit. Really sad, summer went by really fast as usual, but I'm ready for the fall season, and yeah, there's that. We should get started on the second half of episode 4, and if you never watched this episode, the second half is something.
I was born in Africa, taken from my mother and sold as a child. But then Providence placed me in the path of a gentleman. He gave me freedom and education. That is why I now spend my days fighting for the liberty of others.
Otis belongs to the Sons of Africa. They're devoted to ending enslavement for good.
We learned that Otis was born in Africa. He was supposed to grow up there and live there and be with his family, but that unfortunate event of being sold to slavery and being separated from your family, that was tough. And he went through a lot, and it started to become a really, truly eye-opening experience for Charlotte in this scene. I think this is something that she might know, but she doesn't know that much.
Surely slavery is consigned to history.
Well, if that were so, Miss Hayward, I'm afraid there are thousands who yet remain in bondage, and its legacy is all around us.
The way that she mentioned about slavery being the past, like, it's already done, it's in the history book. Like, she acknowledges it, but she doesn't really understand or know the fact that it's still happening, especially in other countries. It might not show that bad where she is right now or in England, but in other countries in Africa, the existence of slavery is very important, it's very recognizable, and it's so obvious that it's still a big issue in Africa and some other parts of the world.
How do you mean?
It's in the sugar of your tea, it's in the cotton of your dress. It's in the grand houses of half the nobility of this country, built with fortunes wrung from the blood and toil of my brothers and sisters.
You should ask your friend, Sidney Parker, about his time in Antigua. He was glad enough to turn a blind eye when there was money to be made.
Charlotte is listening, and she is trying to understand, and it's not like she is arguing or debating their thoughts or beliefs and what they think slavery is and how it's affecting them. She was very open-hearted and open ears, and she really wanted to listen and try to understand and respect their beliefs and opinions on slavery. And I think that's important to learn in today's time. Like, regardless of your political party or what your beliefs or religion believe, like, we can learn from this scene and actually listen to each other, right? We don't have to always agree. We don't need to argue back or raise our tones. So this is something to take from in a positive way, and I do want to commend Charlotte in this scene for just listening and being there for them and trying to understand and show some support one way or another. Like, it's a bad thing, and she has sympathy for them. Like, she feel really bad for them, especially Otis, what he went through when he was a kid. So she trying to see from their perspective and understand. Sydney came into the conversation again for the millionth time. So there's something happened in Antigua related to Sydney and slavery. We'll see if we will ever find out exactly what happened over there. Charlotte just like, oh boy, here we go again. And this really like, I don't know if I'm using the right phrase, like twisting the knife. Charlotte just like, oh boy, like should I believe Sydney or should I be on Georgiana's side? It's a tricky situation. She really wants to be supportive to Georgiana, like that's her friend. But on the other hand, she doesn't want to ruin the trust that she has with Sydney, especially when Sydney asked her to watch Georgiana while he's in London.
Mischief, I, Sidney Parker, gallivant around London with my high society dandy friends.
Stop. Now do go on. I'm intrigued to hear what I might say next.
So they finally made it to the carriage stop, and Charlotte is making fun of Sydney, and Sydney caught them. And the look on her face, she knew she was in a huge trouble in that moment. This is gonna get heated very quickly.
Mr. Molyneux, you are the very last person I'd expect to find in Sanditon.
Forgive me, sir. I would have notified you of my visit, but I could not be certain of the welcome I would receive.
Oh, you could be entirely certain. My position hasn't changed, nor will it.
Sydney and Otis have some bitterness toward each other for some interesting reason that we really don't know just yet. Otis, he tried to be respectful to Sydney, but he is right though. If he told Sydney ahead of time, Sydney will automatically say no, so he took the risk to go to Sanditon and spend some time with Georgiana without Sydney knowing, and unfortunately the game plan failed at the end.
Mrs. Griffiths, Miss Lamb must not see this man again.
Very good, Mr. Parker.
And if I see you within 1 mile of my ward, I will not be held responsible for my actions. Am I understood?
Perfectly.
So it's kind of like a retraining order. Like Sydney strictly enforced Otis not to come near or even see Georgiana ever again. So this is basically that scenario of Romeo and Juliet. They cannot see each other anymore and just cannot be together as a couple or even as friends. So this is really disheartening for Georgiana, and of course she's gonna be upset and heartbroken. It's basically Sydney is breaking them up as a couple.
Mrs. Griffiths, kindly take Miss Lamb back to her lodgings. Now, go, move! Come along.
Otis, he really doesn't have much power in this situation. He kept himself calm, and you can see the look on his face, very heartbroken and sad too. It's a really sad way to end the relationship.
Wait! You can at least allow them a proper party.
Thank you, Miss Hayward. This is none of your concern.
Otis.
Miss Lamb.
Otis.
Please, Miss Lamb. No, we don't want any spectacle of ourselves.
Now.
Come along.
Sydney, he just one of the people where he just like cut you off and doesn't give you a chance to explain or give you a chance at happiness just to sort it out. There's something truly going on between him and Otis. He just has something against Otis, and he's not willing to sort it out and fix it and move on. So it must have been a really big red flag that happened, whether it's in England or something in the past that happened where Sydney just don't trust Otis at all. Charlotte, she's very supportive, and you see the struggle that she went through in this scene. She really wants Otis to be with her friend Georgiana. I mean, she wants happiness for Georgiana.
Did we not agree that you would look out for Georgiana? Keep her out of trouble? I should have known you weren't to be trusted.
And I should have known, despite your professed concern, you care nothing for her happiness.
I would ask you to refrain from making judgments about a situation you don't understand.
I understand perfectly well.
Oh, of course you do. Even though you've known Georgiana but a handful of weeks and him but a matter of hours.
She could have left Georgiana alone with Otis on that picnic, right? And just like continue her day on her own. Like, oh yeah, you guys just go off and have fun. Like nothing happened, you know? No, she stuck by Georgiana's side. And I'm glad Georgiana let her to do that, because I think it gave Charlotte a chance to learn about who Otis is and just understand what their circumstance is all about, and especially with Sydney, kind of like a second witness in a way, and she seemed to be on this side instead of Sydney in this situation. So Sydney, like, Charlotte did what you asked her to do. I mean, it could have been worse, you know? Like, they could have run off back to London and, you know, she wouldn't come back to Sanditon ever again. Like, it could have been a worse situation, but Georgiana's still safe, and she, you know, she's still around in town.
That was time enough to learn that Mr. Molyneux is as respectable a gentleman as I have ever had cause to meet.
You seem to find it impossible to distinguish between the truth and your own opinion.
The truth. You wish to speak of the truth, Mr. Parker.
It's really interesting that after Charlotte said that about Georgiana's happiness, Sydney, like, you don't even know her, like, you only met her for a few weeks now, like, you don't know the whole story. He didn't really mention about Otis in that quick moment there. And then Charlotte switched the subject from Georgiana to Otis. And she's like, he seemed like a really nice gentleman. He respects Georgiana. He shows her care. Like, he treats her well. Like, I don't see anything wrong with him. So she knows that it's more about Otis than Georgiana.
The truth is, you are so blinded by prejudice that you would judge a man by the colour of his skin alone.
You speak out.
Why should I expect any better from a man whose fortune is so tainted with the stain of slavery?
That is enough!
Okay, so it's not really a normal thing for a man to yell at a woman, especially public like that. Sydney has a hard time when Charlotte speaks her mind, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. And this reminds me of episode 1, during that balcony scene at the ball. Sydney really didn't want to hear her honest opinion, and she, of course, blurted it out, and she said that. You can see in the middle of her bashing him out, she said, you know, like, be careful, like, don't you dare finish that sentence, like, don't you even say those words. And Charlie did, and that made him angry.
I do not need to justify myself to you. Mr. Stringer! Kindly see Miss Hayward back to Trafalgar House. Of course.
So it kind of like makes you think like, okay, so maybe Sydney not 100% a bad guy. Maybe there's a different side to the story that Charlie doesn't know yet. And Sydney also not opening up about it. He's not telling Charlotte what really happened from his viewpoint. So Charlotte's just like, Otis. Like, she only heard the side from Otis and Georgiana. She didn't hear it from Sydney. So it's a conflicting situation. You know, you need to know both sides to every story. There's one that is, you know, a lie and one that is truth. Or maybe a half truth, a half lie from Otis. And Sydney just not filling the rest of the blanks about what really happened in the past. She was definitely awestruck by the way that he basically yelled at her. and you see James Stringer just watching them argue, and of course that's embarrassment. It's just not a normal culture, not a normal thing to do, especially back then. It's just showing a man disrespecting a woman in public, and that's just complete embarrassment, especially on Sydney's part.
Thank you. But I'm in no mood to go home. I think I shall take a walk.
I thought that wasn't required. I thought that made it a little bit more embarrassing because James already, saw what happened between the two. I think, Sydney should have just walk away and let Charlotte, be her, with herself. Like she knows the way around. I don't know, maybe he just didn't want Charlotte to be left in the dust with embarrassment, especially people looking at them. But I don't know, I think it's just making it more embarrassing, in my opinion. But it was nice of James to accompany her on the walk. James is more level-headed. He's more calm, more quieter towards Charlotte than Sydney is.
Cannot be. You are not in love with him.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Of course you are. It's so obvious now that I think of it. My poor dear Esther. You have my pity.
I have no need of your pity.
Oh, but you do. I have seen enough of Sir Edward Denham to know how this story ends.
Of course, she's trying to hide it, and she's failing it now, just because, one, Clara saw them, making out in a way. And second, the way Esther is reacting in the scene, it's so obvious that she's really into her brother like that.
Not presume to know the first thing about my brother.
May I give you some advice, my dear? Listen to our aunt. Find yourself a wealthy husband now while you still can. Because whatever this happy future is that you imagine for the pair of you, it is quite impossible. But in your heart of hearts, you already know that.
That was the nicest Clara thing to do that she ever done to Esther in this show so far. But she made a good point. It's not gonna happen. It's one of those relationships where you know that it's gonna die quickly, not gonna last long, and why are you wasting time, and why are you wasting your emotion and your heart in being this relationship that you know that is not the right one for you. Esther gonna go through all the emotion. She might gonna go through the emotion of having a heartbreak with her love relationship with Edward, because she knows deep inside of her it's not gonna work in the long run. And she might as well, go with Lord Babington, who is much more suitable for her, and he seemed like a really nice gentleman, and he's chasing after her. You really want a guy to chase after you.
I'm rather ashamed of myself. Losing my temper like that.
I'm sure you must have good reason to lose your temper.
Oh, I did. Indeed I did. Certain people are inherently disagreeable.
He listened to her, he understand her, and Sydney, he's just cut you off, and we'll see if that changes by the end of season 1. Again, 2 different guys, 2 different personalities. Charlotte just appreciate her friendship with James.
You can try to convince yourself otherwise, but the more you try to get to know them, the more you realise just how disagreeable they really are.
Upon my word, miss. You are not afraid to speak your mind.
Perhaps I should be. Perhaps I would do better to merely simper and say nothing. Is that not what young ladies are supposed to do?
Charlotte, she's different. She's fired. She say what she thinks, and she just say it as it is. And I think that's not normal during her time, and just not expected of in society. But she's proud of it. She's proud of herself, and she believes in what you believe in, and she willing to express that and share that with other people.
Please don't. I wouldn't wish for you to change. Not for the world.
Thank you, Mr. Stringer. Would the draw man be like you?
James, this is like reversing the role in the scene. James is now supporting Charlotte. Like, don't change who you are. Don't belittle yourself. Don't let anyone affect you or change you. We know, specifically Sydney. And you see at the end, James is looking at her walking away, and he really, really likes her, more than a friend. He just sees something special about her. We don't really see that on Sydney's side, but James knows that Charlotte is a special lady, and he has started to have a crush on her. But Charlotte, she's not really into James like that. She just sees him as more like a brother. Like, she can know for sure that she can go up to him and just rant, and he will be there to support her and listen to her and give her advice.
There is no one alive I love as much as you. Tell me you do not feel the same.
Of course.
Oh boy, so Esther basically revealed her true feeling toward Edward.
But I do not see the merit in running away. That money is our birthright. We must be practical, Esther. You are right. Who knows how long our aunt may yet live? Sooner or later, I must find a wife and you a husband.
That's a bombshell. That's like something that Esther did not expect to hear from Edward. So basically, either he doesn't want to admit it because maybe he's embarrassed and thought, all of a sudden, okay, this is so wrong. Like, we just need to separate ourselves romantically and find our own husband and wife for each other and just like move on from this. Or, he's just like playing games with Esther and playing with her feelings and her heart and just like kind of like faking it out all along, so that's why at the end Esther's just like heartbroken.
That's what kind of future can we look forward to?
You're quite right, brother. For a moment there, I quite forgot myself.
No matter.
She's just like, oh my gosh, like, did I fall for like the wrong motion, like the wrong feeling? Like, did I read it wrong? Like, I thought Edward felt the same way, but he doesn't. So it's more embarrassment toward her, and she like, oh my god, I made a fool of myself, not only to him but to Clara and Lady Denham, but she doesn't know, just yet what really happened. So it's just a turning point for Esther, hopefully, and we'll see if she chases after Lord Badminton starting now.
Spoke to 3 different banks at length. Not one of them is willing to extend your credit any further.
Then what do you suggest I do now, Sydney? Huh?
What exactly do I do now? Why not try living within your means? That might help.
Sydney didn't succeed in extending the loan or getting any more financial help in Sanditon and building the regatta event. Tom Parker is in a mess, and he's losing it. He is stressed out, and Sydney did all that he heard, right? And like, what else can they do?
Mr. Parker.
Miss Hayward.
They still agree to each other, but Charlotte completely mad at him. Sydney is upset, but I think a part of him inside knew that he shouldn't have yelled at her like that. We'll see if he confront her and apologize to her for that.
It's quite lovely.
Think of it as a promise.
Promise of what?
Of things to come, my dear. of things to come.
Tom Parker is having financial trouble, right, in building Sanditon and in setting up the regatta event. Like, nothing's working with him, and he basically like bankrupt. Like, he basically broke. Like, he doesn't have enough support and investment in this town, and he's not really telling the truth to his wife. And he bought that necklace. Like, you know, what money did he use, you know, to buy that necklace? And she had no idea, you know, the financial trouble that they're in right now.
Parker's self-important, prejudiced and cruel. If he has made it his mission to keep you and Otis apart, well, I shall make it mine to defy him. Mr. Woodcock!
That was the last two scenes I'm gonna talk about for this episode. Charlotte, like I said, she is Team Otis in this situation. She's willing to risk her life and whatnot, and help Georgiana to send out a letter to Otis and create a game plan, escape plan for Georgiana to see him and, you know, probably elope somewhere. Who knows what's gonna happen next, but she's supporting them as a couple and a Georgiana friend. She's willing to risk everything to help them together against Sydney's wishes. So we'll see what happens next in episode 5. It's just a turning page moment for Sydney and Charlotte. Episode 3, they were just fine, and episode 4, they are not on the same page, and they're in the middle of a disagreement, a huge disagreement. I think it's much worse than the one in episode 1 at the ball. We'll see what happens in episode 5. Any comments? You know the deal. Yeah, let me know what you think of this episode, and I'll see you very soon for episode 5. Bye.